There's a lot of people out there who are looking for alternatives to streaming services, but don't know where to start with building a media library of their own, because as expensive as $20 a month for Netflix is, it still seems more affordable, accessible, and convenient than building your own library or collection. I'm gonna flip that notion on top of its head and show you how you could start building your own physical media library for dirt cheap, and then help you figure out what to do with your movies after you've already gotten them, so that we can get an appreciation for what it is to be preservers of media. And that would be the collector's editions of movies. And I'm not talking about the figurines crowd or the fandoms and things like that, but more specifically, companies like Criterion, for example, whose entire mission is to preserve the greatest and most diverse films of all time in the highest fidelity possible. And even though buying films from a company like this is clearly the stereotypical physical media is too expensive and is completely unaffordable to a lot of us, I'm sharing this just to inspire the mindset of what they're doing, because as you build your own physical media collection, you're doing a similar thing in your own way. We're living in a world where companies are mass deleting catalogs, removing access, or changing or amending the media that came out before. And you're probably here because you're sick of Amazon removing the accessibility for downloading the things that you've purchased yourself. And companies like Criterion and other collector-based companies looking to preserve media in its intentional state, in its highest fidelity, and make it accessible to people is something that we want to support and enable. I mean, these people love cinema history, and it's amazing. If you actually check out their YouTube channel, they have an incredible series where they'll take filmmakers and actors and bring them into their catalog room and have them pick out some of their favorite movies and walk out with them, and they'll look through the catalog, they'll give personal anecdotes of like, oh, I first watched this movie when I was whatever. And it's an amazing way to get a appreciation for the films that came before. And when you're building your own collection, you can take that mindset and do it for yourself. You're building a catalog that represents you instead of a catalog that's given to you by some algorithmic recommendation system. So while that's really expensive, there's cheaper ways to get single individual movies. If I'm being quite honest, the way that I get most of my films is this way. I get them through bulk purchases. I don't know how many movies I have, somewhere between 200 and 300 maybe, and a lot of them came from me getting them cheaply together. And by far the biggest method for me, and this may change for you, is my library has local media drives where they'll put out movies that they're not going to circulate anymore or take in donations, and it's a way for the library to raise money. And you go in, they give you a tote bag, and you stuff that bag full of movies and books, whatever you want, for about $10. And I can walk away with 50 movies every time that happens. As my collection has grown, I've kind of scaled back on doing that because I don't need that many more movies than I already have. And while that's hyper specific to me, you could find the hyper local example of that. There might be church sales around the holidays, or Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. Of course, eBay is an option, but I personally never did that because that just seems like you're competing with the rest of the world. Find a local option to buy bulk things. There have been periods in my life also where I've gotten like these windfalls or inherited a bunch of movies. Just keep an eye out, like whether people are moving or downsizing. There have been 2 or 3 times in my life where I've gone through somebody's collection, picked out like 20 movies that I've liked, and have gotten them for free. And you might find that opportunity for yourself. So like right there, I gave you a bunch of examples that will cost you no more than, I don't know, $20, and you'll walk away with several dozen movies you probably don't need to do anymore. But there's specific types of movies that we might want to supplement with that collection. So let's talk about how to find single movies, because they're hard to come by now. Best Buy has done away with their physical media sales, and you don't really get those deals at Walmarts and Targets anymore. FYE, at my mall closed down. Finding individual movies is a little bit tricky. It's a beautiful day in the 70s, perfect day to go to a thrift store and show you guys how I would go about hunting for movies. Now, typically in a thrift store setting, at least the ones around me, movies are more expensive. Like a DVD and a Blu-ray might be like $5 each. But if you wanted to use thrift stores as a reliable way to get physical media, what you would do is figure out the days that they like restock their shelves, and you go on those mornings and then you can pick whatever. Thrift stores allow me to go in with the mindset of, okay, I'm kind of looking for movies in this genre, and then I can walk away with an intentional purchase instead of just buying something that may or may not make sense for me. All right, so I just got out. I was actually able to score a movie that I actually never saw on Blu-ray. My favorite movie of all time is called Gran Torino, and I found it on Blu-ray here. A little bit pricier, $5, but it replaces the DVD version with a much higher fidelity picture. And of course, the unplanned side effect of collecting movies is you're probably going to come across a bunch of movies that you never heard of or otherwise seen. Like, for example, one of my favorite genres right now is 90s thrillers. Movies that have like one or two A-list stars that I would know, but just completely never heard of because they're just never gonna be on streaming services. And these movies are like 90-minute perfect gems. I feel like 10 years ago, this was a lot more popular, but you might have a local physical retail space closing out. And if you look for those, they might be carrying movies and stuff that they're liquidating, and that might be your opportunity to hop on. I also know that Barnes & Noble carries a bunch of the Criterion Collection, and a couple times a year, I think right around Black Friday and maybe once over the summer, they have like a 25 or 30% off sale. It might even be 50% off. I just know that people go crazy for these sales online. So now that you have a collection, what do you do with them? I guess this is going into the interior design part of the video, which I'm not gonna go too heavy in, but odds are a lot of you may not be the type of people to collect and present figurines like in a man cave style. And I'm certainly not that type either. And if you are, that's totally amazing. You might have all these movies and you're just like, what do I do with them? Sure, you can store them in your media console. You could put them on a shelf besides it. But what's important is figuring out how to utilize that collection and present it in a way that fits your, I hate the word aesthetic, but your living situation so that it doesn't feel out of place and it feels more inspiring to you. I see people absolutely love looking through their DVD cases and presenting them and having them in a subtle shelf like it would be like presenting books. And that's amazing. I actually used to be like that. But I actually kind of grew out of that phase and I had to do a move. I literally had hundreds of movies and I didn't really value having the cases. And I did the worst thing to some of you. I threw out the cases, I know. And I put the individual discs in this binder with a zipper. It's minimalist, it's practical, I could bring it with me, and it's really considerate of my limited apartment space. Sure, some people will say, oh, that's gonna degrade the discs and stuff like that, but the thing is, I got these movies so cheaply. I don't own any movies that are super rare. Like the fanciest collector's edition movie I have is called The Beyond. I may have paid 30, 40 bucks for it. And it's this late 70s Italian horror film by Lucio Fulci. I understand the rationale behind this, but the thing is, I'm doing what's best for me and my consumption style because I like sifting through a catalog quickly and just pulling out the disc and putting it in my player. If you're a physical media collector and you've made it this far where you want to purchase something, I want to encourage the first action of just looking at local flea markets and thrift stores. Go open a new tab, go to Google Maps and see what's in your area and just go today. You don't want to just collect for the sake of collecting because that could be seen as hoarding, but it's really important to align the intentions behind what you're trying to build with your media library. And if you want some more inspiration as to how to think about physical media, you can check out the video right here.